Hi, I'm Donna Mata, and we're talking to Fire Inspector Jeff Medeiros today because it's National Fire Prevention Month, but it's also National Fire Prevention Week.
Yes.
And we are celebrating in a sense.
Right.
And I asked Mr. Medeiros to come on today to talk a little bit about fire safety and how to be safe and what people should be doing in their homes. And he brought some props. First of all, it was you, number one. That's the number one prop.
I'm the number one prop.
So thank you very much for
You're
joining us
welcome.
here at FRC Media. And we do have our props. We have the carbon
Monoxide.
Oh, monoxide.
Carbon
not dioxide.
monoxide
Okay.
detector, which is required in all homes within the state of Massachusetts if there is any sort of fossil fuel burning, or also if there is parking underneath the home or structure. Carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless, so without a detector you would not know that carbon monoxide is present. Again, unfortunately, a very deadly substance, carbon monoxide. It comes from incomplete combustion, and again, you cannot see it, you cannot smell it, and it is a deadly gas.
I did hear, and that's why I'm going to ask you this question, I did hear that the carbon monoxide detectors were not truly reliable. Is that correct? I mean, I know you're supposed to have them in your homes. Is it by law?
It is by state regulation actually, and they are extremely effective. As a matter of fact, any of these devices, be it a carbon monoxide detector, smoke detector, or sprinkler head, have all gone through the UL process for approval, and they are extremely effective. The one thing that I cannot stress enough is that with any of these devices, carbon monoxide detector or smoke detector, you need to make sure that they work. And in order to make sure that they work, what you need to do is press the test button on a monthly basis to make sure if they're battery operated, that they are functioning. And go ahead, Donna, press that button.
Are you sure?
Press that button. That's
There we go.
exactly what your detector should be doing for you in your home, because if you don't have a working battery or a working detector, it's really not going to do much more for you than having a picture on the wall. It's there for a reason. It's there to protect you and your family when you're sleeping. So make sure you test it on a monthly basis to make sure that the device is working. As a matter of fact, the NFPA theme for this year is Hear the Beep Where You Sleep. In the state of Massachusetts, the carbon monoxide detector must be located within 10 feet of all bedrooms and at least one on each habitable level of the home. Smoke detectors, depending upon the age of your home, you need at least a minimum of one on each living level within the home, and in newer homes, you would have a hardwired smoke detector system with a battery backup. One of the things that changed this year in the state of Massachusetts was, as of January 1st, Massachusetts adopted a new fire code. And with the new fire code that was adopted, all smoke detectors must be within 10 years of age, and any smoke detectors you have located within 20 feet of a kitchen and or bath must be photoelectric type smoke detectors. If it's greater than 20 feet from a kitchen and or bath, it must be a dual photoelectric ionization detector. There's two ways of detecting smoke. One way is photoelectric, the other way is ionization. And the carbon monoxide detectors all have to be replaced within 7 years. So every 7 years you have to go out, buy a new carbon monoxide detector. Every 10 years go out, you need to purchase a new smoke detector to make sure they're current and up to date in your home.
Now, most people know about smoke detectors.
Yep.
Everybody knows about, you must have one.
Right.
But carbon monoxide, even I said off air that we were talking about carbon dioxide, CO2
Right.
detectors.
Right.
So everybody should have a carbon monoxide detector by state law too?
Right, by state
Okay.
regulation. In 2006, it became a regulation in the state of Mass under 527 CMR that carbon monoxide detectors be within all residential type buildings. And the whole story behind that, if I could, a quick 30-second story. What happened was there was a family down in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and we had a heavy snowfall. They were shoveling the snow, not paying attention to where their vent was for their house. They had a direct vent appliance, it was installed prior to oxygen depletion switches being within the boiler itself. They piled the snow up, the device continued to run, carbon monoxide detectors were not in the house. Unfortunately, you had mother, father, and children who died within that incident. Shortly thereafter, Massachusetts enacted the carbon monoxide regulations, which again, for the safety of all occupants within the state of Massachusetts in their residential, whether they live in a group home or whether they live in a home, it is required.
Now, you're a fire inspector.
Yes, I am.
In your experience, do people not have carbon dioxide detectors because they don't know that they need to?
Some people do not have carbon monoxide detectors due to the fact of not knowing. I think we've done a pretty good campaign on educating the public that carbon monoxide detectors are required. Occasionally, we do run into some people who, for lack of a better word, are obstinate and don't accept change that rapidly. Mm-hmm. But honestly, when you look at the amount of money that it takes to protect yourself, you're looking roughly at about $20 for a carbon monoxide detector, $20 for a smoke detector. Sometimes if you look at the sale papers, even less. But for $40, I think it's worth everybody's life for that small investment to protect themselves.
They have more advanced smoke detectors these days too, don't they? You talked about the hard wiring
Yes, they
devices.
do. There are actually all types of smoke detection systems, from extremely complicated systems to the battery operated that are shown here. Nowadays, if you were to build a home, it would have to be hardwired, interconnected, which means if you had a multi-level home, when I press the test button on this particular detector, every detector in the home would be going off. Okay, and then the other thing is, in the event if you lost power, these new devices also have battery backup. So in the event if you lost power, they would still operate as well.
Because we have the battery, that's sort of last but just as important.
Exactly.
Because without the batteries, you can't make these two run.
Exactly, so very important, you know, like they say, change your season, change your battery. Make sure that you change your battery a minimum of once a year. They also have devices now that you can purchase that contain a lithium 10-year battery that do not require any changing of batteries. But if you do have the type that need to be changed, make sure you change your battery once a year and make sure you test the devices on a monthly basis to be sure that they're working for you.
And a monthly basis routine seems like a good idea.
Right, it definitely is, because you never know what's going to happen, just like your car. These are devices, they're mechanical to some extent, and they do break. And nothing needs to take place. Nobody has to hit it. It can just be at one of those times where the device stops working, that had you pressed the button, you would know that it wasn't operating for you any longer, and you would know that you needed to replace it. So, you know, myself, first of the month, when I flip the calendar, I just go over to both of my devices, press the button. As soon as you hear the beep, you know it's operating for you.
Now, if the batteries get weak or they're losing power or they go out, there's that low.
Right, what'll happen is they'll chirp, and it'll go into a mode that's going to remind you it's time to change the battery. Once per minute, it'll go through a chirp, and it will not stop until you replace the battery. So there's a little incentive there to get rid of that chirping sound to replace the battery, but really the big benefit is that the device is there to protect you in the event of something bad happening within your house.
And it's a good idea, of course, prevention. That's what
Exactly.
National Fire Prevention is all about.
That's what we're all about, yeah.
I had to grab this because
Okay.
it's orange, it's colorful,
Oh,
it's fun
right.
looking. I've seen them on the ceiling. I haven't seen one in person up close.
Right.
Go ahead, tell us about it.
This is a sprinkler head. Honestly, nowadays, you have many buildings that are sprinkled. There's a big movement, even within this state, to get more residential properties sprinkled. When you look at statistically the homes that are protected with a sprinkler system and with a working fire alarm system, what smoke detectors did for the safety of the public, when you integrate it now with a sprinkler system, your statistics of injuries and fire deaths become so low. So I'm an extremely strong proponent of sprinklers, sprinklered homes, sprinklered businesses. I know there's a lot of discussion nowadays with the building trades that it adds quite a bit of money to a building, but honestly, it does not. And when you look at the effects as far as the recapture rate through the IRS when you install a sprinkler system, and also the insurance premium credits that you receive through installing a sprinkler system, are very, very good. And over the life of a building, it'll add that much value, not to speak of what it does life safety-wise.
You know, you think about fires, you think about deaths, you don't think about injuries necessarily. Very good point.
Right, right.
Very good point.
I mean, all of these devices are life safety devices. They're there to provide protection for the occupants, sprinklers, so that people can evacuate. In many cases, sprinkler technology really is so good nowadays that when we get the call within a sprinklered building, our guys will go in, spend a few minutes finishing to extinguish the fire, and then it becomes a cleanup operation. So sprinkler technology, extremely effective, and it creates a really safe environment for the occupants of a building.
And even in homes, you're saying.
Oh, definitely. Statistically, within the United States, 87% of fire fatalities are within 1 and 2 family homes. Now, due to the housing stock we have here within the Fall River, New Bedford area, we do have a lot of 3 families, 6 families and above. But nationally, majority of fire deaths, 87% again, are within 1 and 2 family homes. So nationally, there has been a movement through the national building codes, also through the NFPA, to have 1 and 2 family homes sprinkled. There's legislation on the table right now in the state of Massachusetts to also follow suit with the rest of the country, and I hope it passes. Yeah. Because I think it'll be a definite benefit to everybody.
It makes sense.
Yep.
And it's installed in the plumbing system?
It's actually, there are different types of sprinkler systems. Here at BCC, this would be considered an NFPA 13 system, which are your larger buildings. Within residential type buildings, there are 13D and 13R systems. So it's a much smaller system. In the case of a 13D system, you can actually come right off your domestic supply and design a sprinkler system right off of that. In a 13R system, it's an independent water line from your water source. And really not extremely complicated, especially if you're building the house when the walls and ceilings are open. Very easy system to install. Very easy. You get a sprinkler contractor because it does require a licensed person to install. Somebody who is a plumber can apply for a sprinkler license and install sprinkler systems as well. So really, can't stress enough, that's definitely the way to go in the future.
Now, before we end our little talk here, I do have a question.
Shoot.
For people who don't cook, and that could be just about anybody, and you tend to have a lot of fires maybe on your stove and the smoke alarms go off and that sort of thing.
Right.
There should be one more prop here.
Which should be a fire extinguisher.
There you go.
Okay. Fire extinguishers, extremely useful in a home. Majority of the time you go out and purchase them. Matter of fact, we have one here coming to the table,
This is
which
great.
we thank
Steve for, yes?
This is an ABC extinguisher, which covers ABC type fires. An A fire is ordinary hazard, a B type fire is your flammable liquids, and a C fire is an electrical fire. Most home extinguishers that you see are ABC type. There's a very light powder in here. The majority of it is sodium bicarbonate or baking soda, which is extremely effective in putting out a fire. A little bit messy, but honestly, I have one in my home. Most people I know, then again, I work with most firefighters, do have one in their home, but extremely effective. The one thing I will say with a fire extinguisher, majority of fires within the home are in the kitchen area. You do not want to store your extinguisher right next to the stove, because in the event of a fire, you're not going to be able to get to it. So store it a little bit away from the stove, possibly just outside the kitchen, again, depending on the size of your kitchen, in a place where you can reach it in the event of a fire. And the one other thing is, in the event of a grease fire, shut off the gas, cover it, put a lid on it if possible, and leave it there. Call the fire department.
Suppose it happens to be an electric stove. Do you still just turn it off? And
You would want to turn off the heat source, because as long as there's continued heat to the source of the fire, it's not going to cool. So even with electric, you would want to shut it off as well.
yeah, which is safe to do. Of
Exactly.
course. And
Yes.
are you saying that baking soda, if you had a box, you can throw it on a grease fire?
They actually have devices that go up on the hoods of above stoves that are called fire stoppers. And I was recently at a conference where the sales representative was there and showing different videos, and extremely effective device. So yes, I'm sure there are some proprietary ingredients, just like with an extinguisher, because an extinguisher, beside having sodium bicarbonate, also does have some proprietary things that are specific to fire extinguishers. But yeah, they do make devices that you install just above the hood, and in the event of a fire or a flare-up, they disperse the agent over, and extremely effective.
Then you can go out to eat.
There you go.
Makes perfect sense. This is Fire Inspector Jeff Medeiros, Fall River, and I do appreciate you coming in. It
Okay.
was sort of spur of the moment. That was great.
No problem.
Make sure, folks, that you buy batteries. That's very important. Some of us, especially some of us, should have fire extinguishers.
Fire extinguishers.
Carpet.
Everybody should have a carbon monoxide detector and smoke detector. And sprinklers, think about it if you're doing a renovation, building a new building, residential building, really does not add that much cost, and definitely a device that could save your life.
It's National Fire Prevention Month. Be safe.
Just
Be
hold
safe.
it.